This week we start out with a review of Argon 40's One Up. That's a laptop made for the Raspberry Pi CM5. Then we talk about the Calibre ebook reader, Gparted. We're talking about AMD's new EPYC CPU, GeForce Now to game on the road, and a whole lot more, from desktop environments all the way to the new Raspberry Pi Smart Display, which is also just coming out. You don't want to miss it. It's a lot of fun, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 240, recorded Saturday, January the 31st. I like the frosting. Hey folks, it is Saturday, and you know what that means. It's a time to get geeky with Linux. We're going to talk some hardware, some software, talk about the kernel, all kinds of stuff. You don't want to miss it. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and it is not just me. I've got a couple of the guys with me. Welcome, Ken, and welcome, Jeff. It is good to have both of you here today, and we've got some stuff to cover.
Yes, and I hope somebody turns the heat up in here.
Oklahoma is going through a bit of a cold snap right now. I don't think we made it above freezing all day today. And then Jeff was telling us that up in the frozen tundra of the north where he's at, it's like 55 degrees. And he's back riding the motorcycle again, I think.
I never really stopped.
Right now, I'd rather be in a good book, in a nice warm room, reading a good book.
There you go. But instead, you're here talking about Linux with us. We appreciate your sacrifice.
Yeah. So you're going to love what I'm starting off with.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, before we get there, I've got some hardware to talk about. And I happen to have it right here. It is I'm going to maximize myself. It is a new laptop. Let's see. I got to hold this thing just right for you to be able to see it. This guy. And you may say, well, it just looks like your regular old laptop. What's so weird about this? Why are we talking about this? I mean, it's running Linux. Those of you that are in the know, may know what's going on here. I'll give you a little sneak peek of what's on the inside. There you go. There's the motherboard. That right there, the green. That's the motherboard, and then beside it, you've got the NVMe drive. Yeah, this is the Argon 40 One Up. This is a laptop shell that runs on the Raspberry Pi CM5. This came in yesterday for me, and I've been fiddling with it a little bit since then, and I thought we'd talk about it just a bit. So I will say I like it. I am reasonably impressed so far. There's one big irritant that I've hit, and that is that it did not include any thermal pads. And so when it's got a nice metallic, it's a heat sink really that goes all the way across the bottom of the laptop. But there needs to be a thermal pad in between, like your main processor on your Pi and ideally your NVMe as well. And it just didn't include those. And so I have an order out to Amazon, supposed to come in tomorrow. I'll get some actual thermal pads, and then we'll put the base on, and that should help the performance a bit once we get it in contact with the heat sink. So that was the one annoyance that I had. But other than that, I am fairly impressed. Of course, it's a Raspberry Pi CM5, so it's the performance there that you would think it is. It'll play a YouTube video full screen at 60, pretty much 60 FPS. I haven't actually done the benchmarking on it yet, but again, it's a Pi 5. It's going to be like every other Pi 5. There is a script that they give you that you run, and it installs things like it sets it to use. I believe I saw in there it sets it to use the correct Wi-Fi antenna, which apparently is a big deal because last night when I was fiddling with it, the Wi-Fi performance was terrible. And then I finally ran the script and it's better. So I think it was trying to use an internal antenna instead of the external one. And then it also gives you the battery performance, which it's sort of interesting. You probably won't be able to see this. Right now, there's an icon on the desktop, and that's where you see the battery at. I've not gotten it to work yet up in the corner where you're used to. The keyboard and the trackpad, they work. They feel okay. They're not an Apple luxury keyboard, but it's serviceable. It's pretty decent. Power on, power off works as you'd expect it to. Like some of the things that's been weird on the Raspberry Pis throughout the years, pretty much just work here. Yeah, so far it's been a perfectly serviceable little machine. And then the thing that comes with it, and I've not tested this out yet either. I have plans for it, but there's a gizmo that comes with it, and it's this gizmo, which it's a block. It's got two USB-C ports on one side, but then on the other side, it's got the 40-pin Raspberry Pi connector. So the idea is that you can pop this thing onto the side of the laptop case, and it breaks out with some black magic. It breaks out that 40-pin connector for you. So if you've got something like a Raspberry Pi hat, which I've got some Pi hats I want to play with, to be able to then extend it out to the side and actually be able to use it. And we talked about the Crow View was another one of these similar ideas. The problem with the Crow View is not only it let you use Raspberry Pi hat, but it did that by putting the entire Raspberry Pi external to the laptop. And I said at the time, somebody needs to make one of these that has a CM5, the compute module, and lets you just put a CM5 in the laptop. Well, that's what this is. That's what Argon 40 has done. And so far, I like it. I will use it some. I will get the hat going, make sure all of that stuff. Again, get the thermals sorted on it as well. But yeah, I think it'll be a really serviceable way to have a Raspberry Pi. Now, is a Raspberry Pi 5 actually going to replace my Framework 16 or my desktop? No, not for that kind of stuff. But for just having something to toss around to do a little bit of web browsing on, yeah, maybe. We'll see. So that is my one up.
So there was no cooling on it. Is it just you replace the cover, and is there like a fan or something to have some airflow in there?
I think there is a fan in there, but I've got screws sitting out of it, so I can't grab it. But it's like a metal strip that goes over that. It's solid metal, and so once I get the thermal pads on there, that entire metal strip will turn into a passive heatsink.
Okay, I just wondered because now normally Raspberry Pis don't have any active cooling on them, right?
Raspberry
but I mean they're kind of open chassis usually.
They are designed that they will never be dangerous, right? No matter what you do to one, it will not overheat and set anything on fire. And they are also designed that they will not burn themselves out. But particularly with the Pi 5, you get much better performance on them if you have active cooling, or at least more active than just having it out in space.
Right.
So, but it's it's to be seen exactly how well that thing performs once I get it all put together.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, with my Raspberry Pi 5, I did put the cooling fan that they included with it in, so it would help to keep it cooler.
Yeah, I would say, particularly if you're going to try to use the Pi 5 like as a desktop replacement, you do want to do some active cooling on it.
Or for a standalone Kodi device?
Probably. That depends upon what exactly, like, are you trying to run 4K through it, or are you just, playing SNES on it? You're emulating SNES, right? Like that can be different things. But yeah, the Pi 5 is going to be happier with active cooling, but will not kill itself without it. All right. Yes.
Just one comment in there is, so when we say active cooling, we mean additional. We should be saying additional cooling, not necessarily active, but passive as well. Just beyond,
so you've got two different. Right, you've got two different things that we could be talking about there, and I use active cooling on purpose, but you could have additional cooling that's passive, and that is just a heat sink. Active cooling essentially means a fan. It essentially means you've got a fan that is blowing onto either the chip or the heat sink. Usually, the way that works is you have a heat sink pasted on, and then a fan blowing over it, and that's your typical active cooling. I know people have done things like water cool Raspberry Pis, but that's just it's just for fun. There's no real reason to want to do that.
Just to see if they can do it?
Just to be able to say that, yes, they have a water cooled Pi. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we've got some stories to cover, and we're going to let Ken go first, and he's going to tell us about one of his favorite programs that's coming up right after this.
Hey, guys. If you don't mind, I'd like to interrupt because I have a open source project I'm a big fan of. Our sponsor for this segment of the Untitled Linux Show, Bitwarden. I know you guys know about Bitwarden, the trusted leader in password, passkeys, secrets management. You know, I use it for my SSH keys. It will generate a public and private key pair. It will then, when I want to log into SSH, offer the public key. It really saves the private key in this encrypted vault so I can't accidentally upload it to GitHub. You know what I'm talking about? Bitwarden this is what I love about Bitwarden. They're thinking about their users. In fact, because I think it's open source, you see more incredible new features in Bitwarden, consistently ranked number 1 in user satisfaction by G2 and software reviews. They have, and this is such good news, I think, for an open source project, 10 million users across 180 countries, more than 50,000 businesses. Great for business, great for individuals, whether you're protecting one account or thousands. For business, the new Bitwarden Access Intelligence is awesome. Organizations can detect weak, reused, or exposed credentials and immediately guide remediation. So you walk the user through, this is why this was bad, without spanking them. And here's how we're going to fix it. Credentials remain a top cause of security breaches, as you know. By replacing those risky passwords with strong, unique ones, it closes a major security gap. Access Intelligence from Bitwarden takes those bad passwords, makes them visible, prioritized, and corrected before you get exploited. They also, and this is something you guys might be interested in, have just introduced something called Bitwarden Lite. This is great for home labs, personal projects. It's a lightweight, self-hosted password manager. It's great for environments that want quick setup, minimal overhead, or just trust no one and I want to host it, and this is the way to do it. Bitwarden is now enhanced. Actually, this is kind of a piece of the access intelligence for everybody, not just business, but individuals. Real-time vault health alerts, password coaching features that helps users identify weak, reused, exposed credentials and fix them. They support direct import from the password managers in your browser. This is important. You shouldn't be using that. Use Bitwarden instead. And if you're using Chrome or Edge or Brave or Opera or Vivaldi, it'll automatically directly import. No more export to a plain text file that's, leaving that around as sketch and importing. It just does it automatically. So you don't have that plain text export, which simplifies migration and reduces the exposure. G2 Winter 2025 says Bitwarden continues to hold strong as the number 1 password manager in every enterprise category. That's the 6th straight quarter. Setup is easy. You'll find it very easy to move. I moved from that other guy, as did Steve, when we all did, right? Very simple. It supports importing from almost every password management solution. And it is GPL open source, okay? There's sometimes people say it's not. It is. You go to GitHub and you can see it. It's also regularly audited by third-party experts, and it meets SOC 2 Type 2, GDPR, HIPAA, CCPA standards. It's ISO 27001-2002 certified. Get started today with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free as an individual, free forever across all your devices, unlimited passwords, unlimited passkeys, hardware keys like the YubiKey, free forever as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. Seriously, why would you use anything else? bitwarden.com/twit. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you, Jonathan and crew. Back to Untitled Linux Show.
Well, Jonathan, this week we hear from Bobby Borisov and Marcus Nestor. They both wrote about the latest stable version of my favorite ebook management software. Yes, I'm talking about Calibre version 9.0. And yes, I still fall into that old habit with that. The most visible change in Calibre is the new bookshelf view, which presents libraries as shelves lined with book spines. In fact, I was trying that out last night. It looks really interesting. I'll probably still just go with having a table listing all my things when I'm going through most of the time. But the ebook viewer now has an edit book button in its controls to let you edit the current book when it's in an editable format, such as EPUB, the old AZW3, or KEPUB. Also new in Calibre 9 is the ability to type a page number in the ebook viewer to go to that page instead of scrolling through existing pages. Now, In the past, I would be sitting there holding down the left or right arrow key to go backwards or forwards until I got to the spot I was looking for. This should make that a lot easier. Now, Linux systems now have momentum-based scrolling for the ebook list when using high-resolution scroll devices like touchpads. Numerous bug fixes include speeding up Calibur's shutdown time by a couple of seconds, fixing spurious unreferenced warnings for SMIL media overlay audio files. I'm waiting to see how that works. And disabling GPU acceleration for Qt Web Engine by default to prevent crashes on some older systems. Now, for more details, since I just hit some of the highlights, follow the links in our show notes to read Bobby and Marcus's article. And they even have a link to the release notes that COVID put out.
Oh, cool. Do you use you actually do your ebook reading on your Linux computer, right? Because one of the other things that Calibre really supports is syncing to your other devices.
It depends. I actually will sync the ebook to my use Calibre to transfer ebooks to my Chromebook and my phone and a Kindle Fire 7 HD that I have.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an
7.
Android phone?
Yeah.
What ebook reader do you use on the Android phone?
Well, on the Android phone, on the Chromebook, and on the Kindle, I use FB Reader.
FB Reader. All right. I will have to look into that one. I'm getting like an 8-inch tablet coming in here in another few days. And
the reason why I use that one is it has a network where basically it sets up so it uses a folder on your Google Drive to sync between the various devices that it's set up on.
Oh, cool.
That way I can move from one device to another and it picks up at the same spot.
Handy. All right. Yeah, I like I said, I've got the Android tablet coming in, and so I think I may do a Calibre install and try to set it up with an Android app and see what happens.
But yeah, you'll want to figure out where you want to store your master library of ebooks. Or you may decide that you want to have different libraries depending on what the ebook's about, like one for just fiction, one for your reference material, and then a third one for juvenile fiction.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just move between the three and Calibre, depending on which ebook or ebooks you want to sync up to whichever device you're wanting.
Yep. All right. Well, let's talk now about some hardware. Something a little bit more powerful than the Raspberry Pi 5. Jeff's got a story for us about
just a little bit more powerful.
A little more powerful. Jeff, what's up?
Yeah, a little. Maybe 256 times more powerful. So
at least
we're looking at AMD EPYC 9755 versus a Xeon 6 Granite Rapids. Now, those of you in the server arena are probably aware that these chips are not new. They were both released in the fall of 2024, so they're a little over a year old. So why is Michael Larrable over at Phoronix doing a story on them? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First, he did a fresh set of tests on these CPUs about a month ago because one of his servers died. He had a new one, and he wanted to rerun the tests. Now, these are both the AMD and Intel systems are 2 CPU boards. The systems hold 2 CPUs, and each CPU has 128 cores and 256 threads. So each system will then have 256 cores and 512 threads. Now, Michael then talks about how over the holidays, he reworked the benchmark tests. Some were updated to newer versions. Some were set to increase the load to work the systems harder. And there's new tests added. Now, he did mention, because of future hardware coming, things become more powerful. He wanted to kind of crank up the difficulty of some of these benchmarks. Now, when he did all this, he did more tests. And since this was a new set of benchmarks, he took the time to run over 500 benchmarks on each system to really put them through their paces. Now, both systems were running Ubuntu 25.10 with the 6.18.1 kernel, and they were using the GCC 15.2 compiler. And both systems were running 24 sticks of 64 gigabyte DDR5 memory. So, yeah, it's a lot of memory. Yeah, in my head, I can't do 24 times 64, but it's a lot. Michael also noted that when he was taking power measurements, it was only done for the CPU because while the EPYC is still on the AMD reference platform, but the Intel system is the one that died, so it's now using a gigabyte R284-A92-AAL1 board. So since there's only one reference platform, he didn't think it seemed fair to run the total system power on both these, because you're kind of now comparing apples to oranges since one's a reference board, one's an aftermarket board. So, and for those that don't know, he tries to keep the hardware as the same or similar as much as he can. For example, if they were both on reference platforms, he would have used the system numbers. Now, pure performance-wise, it wasn't a shock as the AMD EPYC came out on top by a very noticeable margin. Power versus performance is also captured in the tests, and that kind of shows that EPYC does take more power sometimes, but based on the kind of workloads you do, the power per unit work done matters. So power and power efficiency is huge for these types of chips, because when you have hundreds or thousands of them, in a server farm, the power bill becomes enormous. And not to mention, you have to cool all these servers. And depending on the overall heat load, the method of cooling might need to be changed or supplemented, or, it can, extra power can really cause a lot of cascading effects and issues you're going to have to deal with. And all of them cost money, and probably a lot of money. Now, if this was the end of the story, I might not have picked it up. It isn't really much different than we've seen in the past, but this next item I thought was really cool. So Michael said he ran 500 tests. And I often say, you hear me, the mantra, look at the tests and match your specific workload to find out the best solution is for you. Because there were a few tests, for example, where Intel just ran away with the result. On average, it didn't, but certain things it handles really well. Now, scrolling through 500 tests to find what you want is a task of drudgery. Out of 500 tests, maybe you only care about 10 of them, and you might not even be 100% sure which benchmarks are a good analog for your workload. Well, no more. Michael added a new summary page, and at the bottom of the article linked in the show notes, there's a link to a new summary page, which is interactive. So when you click on that link, that page that opens up, there are two columns on the left, and the first is workload categories, which have items like audio encoding, time code compilation, linear algebra, molecular dynamics, and many others. I just cherry picked a few in there. There's tons of them in there. The second column is individual workloads. So all the specific benchmarks are shown. So that's where you'll find like your 7-zip compression, your Blender tests, FFmpeg, and so on. Now, I say interactive. So, for example, you click on audio encoding, the long list of individual workloads will only show 4 items in this case, so that you can just see which specific individual tests align with the audio encoding. Now, in the center of the page will be the geometric mean of all those tests of the 4, and then the individual tests results below that. So in this case, out of the 4 tests, maybe you only care about FLAC encoding. Well, clicking the FLAC encoding on the individual tests, now there's only 4, so you click on it. Now that summary table will then shrink to just the FLAC results. And on all these, below the results, and like in this case, the FLAC results, you'll be all the details of how the test was run, all the hardware details, the software specifics, kernel compile flags, all the full details. So if you want to have any question how it's run, it's in this monster block of texts of exactly how everything was set up. Now, not only though will you see the performance numbers above the result page, there are other buttons to look at, not only performance, but power efficiency. There's a value / performance per dollar. And then there's 3 different sorting methods. So you can look alphabetical results, biggest to smallest. You can sort through how you want. Now, the only issue playing around with this that I had was I was just looking at FLAC results, for example, and I was on performance. Well, then I was like, oh, let's look at power efficiency, see how it handles it. Well, it reloads the whole full table again. So then I have to go back and select audio encoding again, and then select the FLAC option again. So I can't just cycle through the 3 different options there. You kind of have to reselect each time you jump in a different category. I can get the information I want. It's just that you're not going to go, say, toggle between performance and value per work unit really quickly. It's not bad. I mean, it takes a couple seconds to load, then you click, and it maybe a second to summarize. So it's pretty quick. It's just not instantaneous like you'd think it would be. But you know what? I think it's still really awesome, and I can cut out a ton of the tests that I don't really care about and just focus on the ones I do. And because sometimes, you look at these tests, there's ones in there, I'm like, I don't even know what the heck this is for. And other than the grouping it's near, you're like, I don't even know what this is. I guess it's, some kind of encoding or compile because it's kind of around other ones I recognize. But now you'll have a very definitive, oh, yes, this is exactly what I want. So take a look at the article in the show notes and have a look and play with the results too. It's pretty cool. So happy data mining.
Yeah, that's super cool. I like his new interface to be able to look through all of those. That's really useful. Hopefully other things that he benchmarks will get the same treatment.
How cheap are the AMD EPYC chips?
Almost $10,000.
Yeah.
That'll break my bank.
Yeah.
Well, and then you need 2 of them for the board, because these are dual CPU boards, and then 16 times 64 DDR5. Yeah,
that's the expensive thing right now.
Yeah.
So I guess I wouldn't go into my existing workstation.
No, probably wouldn't even fit in the case. That's funny.
Yeah, they're and to cool those. So if anybody hasn't ever seen them, they're stacked vertical and very tightly spaced, but they're set so that usually on servers you have fans at the front and back, or just at the back, and so you get pretty extreme airflow across them. Mm-hmm. And if anybody hasn't seen them, a lot of times
back and a vacuum at the front.
Actually, they kind of do.
But it depends. It depends upon the data center, right? I've seen some data centers where it's just open front and back, and you've got the fans inside of the case doing everything. But then apparently some data centers will actually be like hot aisle or cold aisle, and so that it'll air condition. It'll air condition the front of the cases, and then they all blow their hot air into the back, and then that's like a separate plenum area. Some data center setups for air conditioning is really impressive.
And then they take that hot air and run it out through an exhaust. Or
so what you do is, most of the modern ones now are at least hot aisle, cold aisle. So you have these fans and these servers are not like your regular PC fans. They scream, and they are,
very loud.
They have guards because they will take your finger off. They are serious fans.
Yes.
And outside the room is chilled, and your hot aisle is pulling air up. So you have your servers stacked back to back in an enclosed space, and the ends are capped and the tops are capped. So it's its own little chamber. Mm-hmm. It's pulling air up into air circulators to re-chill the air. Now, there's a lot of, because of the power in the chips now, there's a lot of people are looking at direct water cooling in servers now. There's even, people are looking at immersion and immersing the whole board in a tank to help cool it better. And so that not only is your CPU getting cooled in your memory, the other chips on the board are getting cooled. So that's some stuff going on. There's a lot of technology going into how do you keep these things cool. And if you just have a few, you don't need hot aisle, cold aisle. I mean, that's the bare minimum, though, if you really have a server farm. And then up from there is where you start getting into some liquid solutions. You start getting, other solutions. But and I will add, Keys 512 said it's around 38,000 for 2 terabytes of RAM, and he said these are running about 1.5, so little below 38,000 just for the memory.
Still a lot of money.
Which technically is more than 2 of the CPUs.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Crazy.
Keys 512, thanks for letting me know that there's another update that came out today that fixes several bug fixes that were found with 3.9.0.
Oh, of Calibre, yes. Calibre 9.1 came out on the day we recorded this episode. Yeah. Okay. I've got some stuff to talk about now, and I too will take a bit of time to get through all of this. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to that. We're going to talk about desktops for a bit, not the hardware, but the desktop environments. And up first, we got a video from Brody Robertson, talking about KDE's new, well, it's not even out yet. It's still a pull request, KDE's VR mode, which this is obviously, it's obviously based on what the new Apple headset does. And I've seen screenshots of people using this. But this is for Linux machines in VR under KDE. And I'll include the link to the actual pull request. Now, there's something really fun that is part of this, and it's that at the very top of the pull request, there's the statement, "I do not work for Valve. I'm just doing this in my spare time." This is something Brody points out too. The last few really fun things that we've seen come along for KDE and for Linux in general, Valve has secretly been paying for it. And so Stanislav Alexandrov wants us to know that this is not one of those. He is just doing it because he finds it fun. However, if you are going to get a Steam frame, this is something that would be very interesting to do with it. And maybe he has a developer kit for it. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, it's the idea of let's map individual windows. Well, you have like a KDE desktop in the center. If you go and watch the video, you've got a KDE desktop floating in 3D space in the center, and then you can open applications and map them into 3D space so that you have essentially your workstation as if you have a 10 monitor battle station. You can just have them floating in space, which it's a super cool thing. Personally, I don't know how practical this is, but for folks that really like to spend all of their time in VR, there you go. Makes a lot of sense. I think it would be fun to play with, right? Like this is something that, at least for me, is going to be fun to play with a couple of times at some point, but probably not super duper practical long term. And then also in KDE news, we've got the Plasma. This Week in Plasma blog post is out. And one of the really interesting things here is that Plasma 6.7 is getting the old Air Plasma styling, the Air desktop theme. That's the one that debuted with KDE 4 is coming back. And looking at it again, I hate to say this twice, but it reminds me of the new Apple Liquid Glass. It's got sort of that look to it. But that's something that's been around in KDE since back in the old days, and it's coming back. There's a couple of other things like the Wayland EXT background effect V1 protocol to do things like background blur. That's coming to Plasma 6.7. Some fixes for 6.6. Global shortcut for clearing notification history. Oh my goodness, I want that. I end up with a lot of notifications sitting. Various things like emoji selectors, cursor themes are getting more accurate previews. They fixed a bug where intensive Alt Tab usage could cause a black screen. all kinds of fun stuff happening in Plasma 6.6 and 6.7 we're talking about this week. And then the last thing to mention here is, not to leave Cosmic out, Cosmic is getting a new release, and some new upcoming things have been revealed. Carl Ritchell talked about things like the frosted glass effect is coming to the Cosmic desktop, and they've got some previews of what that looks like, which is pretty nice looking. It looks pretty impressive. And then there's just other rough edges being sanded off of Cosmic. Animations coming, just a fix for Bluetooth being automatically re-enabled. And it's just the things that you expect, like the niceties, the frosting, let's put it that way, that you expect on a modern desktop environment that maybe Cosmic shipped without. They are now going back and putting those things back on. And so it seems like Cosmic is really becoming a player, becoming a real alternative for the Linux desktop. And at least for me right now, the only two interesting desktops are KDE and Cosmic. All of the rest are dead to me. I'm just not terribly interested in them. These are the two that I have my eyes on, and I don't know. Maybe there's a Cosmic future for me on one of my machines. We'll have to see. But a lot going on in the desktop environments these days. Exciting stuff, and lots of this fun stuff coming.
So, what desktop would you be least likely to pick?
Probably XFCE, or.
So should I remove the next article from the show notes?
No, you can cover it. I'm just not going to run it.
I was going to say you're hurting Ken's feelings now.
Because
I would say mine would be CDE.
Yeah,
everybody remembers that.
Yeah, like I like the sort of full fat. I ran GNOME for a while. GNOME's still not my favorite these days. I really like KDE. I really do. I dig what they've done with it, particularly with the most recent stuff, like with the KDE 6 and some of the fun things that have come. You can have interactive. You can put your screensavers on your desktop, and so when you have Windows that's not full screen, you can have fun things moving on your desk. Like, I just like that kind of stuff.
Well, and it's not the memory hog it used to be. They got rid of that like a couple generations ago.
Yeah,
so people say, "Oh my god, it's so huge and bloated." No,
was that KDE 4?
Yeah, 4 was.
Look at this. Look at this. Those of you that can see. I mean, look at this. This is the kind of thing that you can do in KDE. I've got the the 80s style synthwave rolling hills grid. I know that sounds really weird, but that is what it is, as my wallpaper, and that's just something that works. It's fun. I like I said, I just love all of these fun extra bits. The frosting. I like the frosting on my desktop.
And for those that can't see, I'd say it's the average person definition would be kind of rolling hills that are moving, but they're on just a mesh grid, like an old 80s video game.
Yeah. And I'm using Ubuntu Studio 2510, which has KDE. And here's my desktop.
Hang on. There we go. There's your desktop. Yep. It's very simple.
I just
Keith's 512 says that it seems like a waste of CPU cycles. Actually, that plugin is fairly smart. And when you don't have when your windows are full screened, it freezes it. It does not continue to render it. So it's only when you want to look at it. So it's not wasting any cycles at all. No cycles were wasted.
And right now, with everything I've got running, I'm only using 21% of my AMD Ryzen 7.
Yeah, and Wizarding, the XFCE, you said very light on resources. KDE is not that much different anymore. I've seen comparisons where people have actually done benchmarking between the two. they're not that far apart. It's pretty close nowadays.
Indeed. Yeah, it really is.
And if you're worried about every CPU cycle, say you got like a really old processor and you're fighting it, you can turn all that stuff off. I mean, it's all optional, so you can make it really slim if you really want to, and just go, I'm going to turn off all these composting things and all the cool stuff. And
yeah. All right. Well, so we were talking about desktop environments and what I don't use anymore. And one of the ones that I don't use is GNOME, but there are a few things inside of GNOME that I still really like. I found really useful. Some of the utilities that start with the letter G, right? It's like this show brought to you by the letter G. And Ken is going to tell us about an update of one of those right after this.
Well, Jonathan, I'm going to have to correct you. I'm not going to be talking about anything from GNOME. I'm actually going to be talking about XFCE, since this week Bobby and Marcus also wrote about the XFCE project, working on a brand new Wayland compositor for their lightweight desktop environment, which will be used as an alternative to the current window manager to support Wayland sessions. Currently, XFCE uses XFWM4 for X11 sessions. Now, it will be replaced by XFWL4, a brand new Wayland compositor designed to offer the same functionality and behavior. Now, XFCE core developer Brian Terricone, and I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but he is leading the work and is going to be reusing the existing configuration file dialogues and XF comp settings from the XFWM4 window manager. Now, XFWL4 will not be based on the existing XFWM4 code. Instead, it will be written from scratch in Rust using Smith-A building blocks. Jonathan, is Smith-A from GNOME?
I was thinking about that. I'm trying to remember if anybody else is using that. Is it Smith-A? Is that part of what is Cosmic as well?
It's possible. I'd have to do some research on that. But as always, you can get more details from Bobby and Marcus's article about what XFCE is doing.
Yeah, it looks like it is. It looks like Cosmic is part of is working on Smith-A as well. So Cosmic and XFCE are going to have some similar roots now as they enter the Wayland era. And I have to say, in my defense, in the show notes, Ken said that he was going to do a project that starts with a G. I'm not going to spoil it for everybody. And I called it out, and then he switched it on me. So thanks for that. Appreciate that. Anyway, we'll get to that here in a bit. Interesting to see XFCE coming around to Wayland, and interesting to see that they have the funding to be able to do this too. Like that's actually really neat to see that they've raised enough money to be able to hire somebody, to take one of their developers and bring him on full time to be able to work on this. Like that's very cool. I like to see that. Good for them. Okay, Jeff, it's time to talk about Team Green.
Yeah, well, we did some work. Let's do a little play.
It's time to play.
Yeah. So at CES this year, NVIDIA announced that their NVIDIA Now service is going to be coming to Linux. Well, it's shown up as a Flatpak now. Now, I should note that this is still in beta, so if things are not perfect, be aware they're still putting polish on the final product. So just be forewarned. There could be dragons beyond this point. Now, before we go too far, I should fill in those who are asking, what is NVIDIA Now? NVIDIA Now is a service where you can play games locally, but the heavy lifting is done on NVIDIA servers remotely. You do need a modern GPU that can support H.264, H.265, Vulkan video support. NVIDIA hasn't yet supported the Vulkan Video AV1 codecs with GeForce Now on Linux, but we're stuck right now with 264, 265 until they get AV1 working. If you're using NVIDIA graphics on the NVIDIA 580 series or newer is what's recommended, And they say while using an Xorg session. Now it's recommended. It's, with Wayland, your mileage may vary, but again, it's still beta. If you're using Intel or AMD Radeon graphics, you need recommended Mesa 24.2 or greater. And it's recommended to use that with Wayland. So just be aware there's some basic requirements. Now, I also need to mention that GeForce Now is pretty much a paid service. I say pretty much because there is a free tier, but you only get 1 hour game session. And now you can fire up another session right after, but once an hour, you're gonna have that break in gameplay where you got to jump back in. You're also limited to 1080p resolution at 60 frames per second. And you only have access to 2,000 games only, where the paid versions get 4,000 plus. The free version also has ads. Now, they do have a performance, which is kind of their middle tier, with no ads at $9.99 a month, or basically $10 a month. You get higher resolution, more games, longer play times, things like that. And then they have a top tier, which is $19.99 a month, with even more resolution, more frames per second, faster queue times getting on the service. You pay more, you get a little more. So now, while I did say you need a newer GPU, which supports the correct codecs, but because of all the work being done on the NVIDIA servers, you don't need that good of local hardware. So your video card has to support the right codecs, but it doesn't have to be super powerful. You don't need something really crazy. It's just display. Your local system is kind of like a dumb terminal for the most part. You're just a display device. If you want to get this, or at least try it out, you can take a look at the article in the show notes to get the link to download the flat pack from NVIDIA. Now, you can find it on FlatHub, but I'm not sure how recent it is, and the package is also unverified. So, personally, I would get the link, or, and in the show notes, or just go directly to NVIDIA's website and just download the flat pack from there, just so you get the latest, greatest, and it's a verified source. Now, on a personal editorial note, I think this could be a good stopgap for those who either can't afford a big computer, powerful enough hardware, or those who play games which maybe won't run on Proton locally. Now, personally, I don't see it replacing Steam, especially for me locally. But, I could see if I had some friends playing a game which doesn't run on Linux, and I didn't know how, or I, for some reason, couldn't dual boot, into Windows. This might let me play those games. And I hear from people that they play games that normally they can't through GeForce Now. Now, because realistically, I don't honestly see much of a difference with this than the Steam remote play ability, where you can have a powerful PC somewhere in your house doing the rendering, and you're playing it somewhere else on your house in a less powerful device. Kind of, except this, you're using NVIDIA servers somewhere. Now, I don't think I would get it, and I'm not advocating for it, but I'd like to have the option out there for everyone to decide on their own. And if there's one thing that Linux users love, it's choices, and now we have another one. So happy gaming.
Yeah. Now, can those of us that use AMD video cards, is it possible to run NVIDIA Now with an AMD video card?
Yes. And you have to have Mesa 24.2 or greater, or they recommend it, and they recommend you're on Wayland. Both AMD and Intel. So all three video card companies you can they support.
Very cool.
And for those that just want to try it without putting out any money, there is a free tier.
Yeah, that's the one with only 2,000 games. It's got ads though, and I don't think I could do that. Like interrupted. Is it? Did you say it was once an hour?
Once an hour.
I guess
so every hour you get logged off, and then you got to log in again, And there's a server queue, and they say the average time for the free tier is about 2 minutes. So you probably have a 2-minute pause waiting to get back into the server queue. The middle tier has a queue, but it's usually under 2 minutes. You get a little more priority, and if you pay for the full one, you kind of jump to the front of the queue and get in quickly. Yeah. And it's like the middle tier, the first paid tier is I think 6 hours gameplay, and the primo tier is like 8 hours of uninterrupted gameplay. And then after 8 hours, you will have to relog back in. But
yeah, for legal purposes, right? They don't want to be responsible for anybody playing for over 8 hours.
Yeah,
guys have had a heart attack and died because of that.
But the good news is you can try before you buy.
Yeah,
you totally can. And even if you're just like, oh, I can't play whatever favorite game. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you can play it. Now I don't know if there's extra fees in getting the games or how that quite works, or if you just have access to them and you can play them however you want without. I don't know how that works, to be honest. But
well, maybe next week Rob can give us a review of it.
Yeah, if we can get him into Linux and not booting into Windows all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's talk about remote desktop then. So this is, I guess a very similar idea, although we're going to talk about it for business, not for gaming. Those that have been around the sort of Linux desktop world for a while, you may know the bit of the drama around VNC. And so there was, I think Real VNC was first, and then there was Tight VNC, and now there's Tiger VNC. And each of these projects have started, gone really well, and then either go paid only or development stops on them. I think we finally have one that is still being developed in Tiger VNC. And I say that because we have a story here that Tiger VNC had the 1.16 release this past week, and it's got some interesting stuff in it. Obviously, it's got the normal bug fixes that you would imagine. It has official support for RHEL 10, which will be important for some of us, but it has the W0 VNC server to share Wayland desktops. And of course, that is something that has been complained about when talking about the Wayland versus X11 thing. And so we now have Tiger VNC, which brings official support for doing that. So you can do VNC for your whole Wayland desktop. Now, I've not set this up myself, haven't had any do, so I don't know how well or how poorly it works. But it should now be a usable option. You get some more keyboard shortcuts like F8 apparently will let you go into full screen mode and do some key redirects. So that sounds pretty useful. It's still on SourceForge. Just to give you an idea of how creaky the VNC world is, Tiger VNC is still available on SourceForge. And man, I don't know about you guys, but for me, that's generally a sign that, this project has been around for a while. One of the other interesting notes is that Ubuntu 20.04 and RHEL 7 are no longer officially supported. But yeah, Tiger VNC 1.16. It's out there. It's ready to go. It still has a Java viewer in it. I mean, goodness, VNC has been around for a long time.
But at least that they've added support for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 10.
Yes. Yep. RHEL 10. I think Wayland. I think the Wayland support is the bigger deal, honestly.
Yeah.
The W0 VNC server. I wonder how that works under the hood. I'm sure there was long drawn out 5-year long fight inside the Wayland Git repository before they were able to make that work.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, VNC has been around a long time.
Yes,
I've used a few of those different VNCs you rattled off over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's been quite the trip. You got to set something up for somebody, particularly trying to do like VNC on Windows was always real interesting.
Especially when Windows wants to push the RDP.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. All right, let's see. Now it is about time to get Ken to talk about an application that starts with a G. And assuming that he has not pulled something else out of his hat, we're going to do that right after this.
Well, yes, Jonathan, this time I am going to talk about something that begins with G, though I don't really think of it as being associated with GNOME anymore. Because this week, Bobby Borisov and Marcus Nestor also wrote about the release of Gparted version 1.8, open source partition editor software, and Gparted Live 1.8.0-2. Now, Gparted 1.8 resolved several crash scenarios, including failures caused by missing icon resources and crashes in command status when the application is compiled without optimization. File system operations are now safer and more consistent. Gparted now erases file system signatures before all file system copy operations, reducing the risk of conflicts or residual metadata during partition duplication. Gparted 1.8 also improves support for FAT file systems by fixing a hang when setting FAT labels that match a root folder entry, as well as an issue where Gparted displayed error messages along with the FAT label. Gparted Live 1.8.0-2 is now built from the Debian SID repository as of January 27, 2026, so it's a very recent build, and it's providing newer core components than previous images. The Linux kernel has been updated to version 6.18.5, improving hardware support and compatibility across a wider range of systems. It also includes a mechanism to avoid blank screen issues on some systems, as well as all the latest package updates, bug fixes, and security patches from the upstream Debian repositories. I'm going to recommend checking out Bobby and Marcus's articles for more details, since again, I'm just touching on the highlights from their articles.
Yeah, I discovered Gparted years ago because I got tired of doing parted on the command line because that gets fiddly. And Gparted it tends to just work.
And the Gparted Live is great for when you're wanting to mess around with a system that has Windows on it already.
Yeah, I usually will I've got some Fedora live disks. I'll do that. And then if you can get online, you can go install Gparted real easy.
I might be a little weird, but I use Gparted and Kparted. So they're both front ends. It depends what I'm trying to do, because some, the way they display it works better to use one rather than the other, or it's not that you can't do it. It's just like, oh, this works better for this and this works better for that, and just by how they graphically display things. But it's the same core.
Right.
Since I've got Gparted Live on my Ventoy, that's what I default to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. It's super, super useful though to be able to do all this disk manipulation stuff, particularly from a GUI. It's handy from a GUI.
Though there's not much to manipulate when it's only a 58 gigabyte drive.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. That's a very small hard drive. I've not used.
Guess what that's in?
A long time. I mean, that sounds like a netbook size hard drive.
It's a 2024 HP laptop 14-DQ3 XXX.
2024?
Yeah.
Bought at Walmart.
Well, I was thinking if you would have said 2014, I would have went, oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know where it was bought. I'm assuming it was bought through Amazon.
Oh, that could be. I know that there for a while there were some very sketchy low spec machines bought at stores like Walmart and other places, and it's like, outdated the moment you brought them home.
Yep. First thing I wanted to do was update to Windows 11. Now I'm just trying to figure out with an Intel Celeron and that much memory or
let's talk about
space.
Yeah, let's talk about the upgrade path for this computer. You take the computer and you drop it in the trash can, and then you go and get an upgrade.
You wouldn't put a Linux distribution on it and use it as a thin client?
Man, in some cases, those things are so underpowered. You're not even going to have a good time running Linux on them.
Yeah, they're kind of spare parts, and a lot of times everything's soldered in, so you can't upgrade them. They, can you add a video card? It doesn't even have the connector for it. It's
no.
There is nothing you can do with
it.
I've got a buddy that talks about how that some of these factories, what they'll do is they sweep the floors, and then they take all the bits that they found, fall into the floor, and use them to build something. It's like, not literally, but that's sort of the idea with some of these. It's like you just had all these leftover parts. You said, what can we make with these parts? And you made this.
That sounds like
sort of junky laptop.
40 years ago, AMC, they used to say that about Detroit. They'd sweep all the parts, and whatever was left over, they threw it into an AMC vehicle. All you car nuts are going to appreciate that.
Yep.
Johnny Cash wrote a song about it.
Yep. I was just thinking about that. We better not sing it. Then we'll get content matches. Jeff, you want to talk about what's that?
Our singing. Yeah, we're not matching nothing.
Hey, now speak for yourself. All right, Jeff, you want to talk about Proton? There's something new, fun there.
I do.
All right.
So far, we covered an enterprise story, which is like work. Then we covered gaming, but remote gaming, which kind of deals with for remote servers. Now let's get it back home with local gaming. And to do that, we're going to talk about a new Proton release that's just come out. Proton 10.0-4 is out with several fixes. Now, if you've been on experimental, there are now several titles which this release version is fixed or has the fixes applied. So they moved them from experimental into the release version. Games include Surgeon Simulator, Experience Reality, Changeling VR, Summoner's War Rush, Quantum Threshold, Fellowship, Metal Slug Awakening, Zero Caliber 2 Remastered, and many others. And there's other fixes, like if you've been playing Far Cry 5 and getting outdated driver warnings, that's been taken care of, along with Age of Empires 4 Anniversary Edition, which had the same issue. If you have an OLED Steam Deck, you now have HDR when playing Far Cry 5. They also fixed a bunch of regressions from previous Proton 10 releases, so they fixed video should play correctly again in King of Bones and in Indivisible. Sackboy Big Adventure should no longer display a series of errors on a fresh prefix. God's Arena Online is now registering touch and mouse input correctly. Killer Instinct should no longer crash at the end of a match. Camera panning should also work as expected in Dungeons & Dragons Online. Blood Rush should no longer crash with new Proton prefixes. So this is just a tiny sampling of what they've done. They've also added support for Steamworks SDK 1.63. They've updated Wine Mono to 10.4.1, updated VDK 3D-Proton to version 3.0b, and they updated VKD 3D to 1.18. Now, like I said, I wanted to add, this is just a tiny fraction of the fixes. They go from things like Assassin's Creed Shadows being playable again to others like Agatha Christie, Evil Under the Sun, now being playable in French. In the changelog, they've listed 19 games that were playable under experimental, which are now playable under the release version of Proton. They have 43 items they've fixed for games, and that's not counting regression fixes, of which there were 9 of those. And those are the ones listed. And, because many times fixing something in one game can fix it in another because of how games, they share libraries, they share game engines. You can have further fixes repercussions than they originally planned on. So if you had a game with an issue which was not listed in here, I would suggest giving the new version a try and just see if the game got fixed. So you can take a look at the article linked in the show notes for full details, and it has a link to the official change log. So happy gaming.
Yeah, I've got a game that I enjoy playing that gives me you're running an unsupported video card. I'm going to have to boot that up again. Make sure I have the newest Proton and boot that up and see what it does. See if it fixed that one. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, the Ultimate Marvel versus Capcom 3 sounds like it might be time for me to go back and try that.
Yeah. I mean, if you have something that hasn't worked in the past, yeah, try it on the newest Proton Experimental and see if you get anything. They are constantly working to fix those things, and there's a huge. I think it's on GitHub, the Proton project. They've got just a huge list of issues, and most games in the Steam library has an issue of some sort there, even if it's just it pretty much works. But if there's not one for your particular game, go open an issue.
And then with Valve working on running on Arch or ARM64, what kind of display do we need?
I mean, you can use whatever display you want to, I think. I'm gonna. There was an attempt at a segue. I shut it down, and then I will segue. Yeah, so
Finding a segue.
Yeah, I've got the last story this week, and it's not about gaming at all. It's about the Raspberry Pi and the new Raspberry Pi Smart Display module. So Phoronix picked this up, but it's also on the official Raspberry Pi blog. And this is something that was shown off at a conference this year, the ISE conference in Spain. And so Intel has this specification for what's called a smart display module. So you'll have like a big format, or at least reasonably large format screen that you want to be able to plug a computer of some sort into it. I'm not talking that HDMI. I'm talking like you have the computer on a little card that you slide into the side of the TV or the projector or whatever it is to be able to do it. Essentially, your smart video marketing, right? So like you go to a restaurant and it has, instead of the old printed out menus up on the wall, it's got a display. Well, maybe they have these in it, or you see one of those big walls of monitors that gives you a really big video playing. It may be based on these, right? So it's like this miniature sort of blade thing. And what Raspberry Pi has done is they have looked at that. Apparently it's an open specification. They've looked at that specification and they've said, well, we can do that. And so there is now a Raspberry Pi Smart Display module, and it's got the guts of a Raspberry Pi CM5. So it's a Pi 5. But it is built into this little thin sort of rack mount looking. It's got a handle on it. It's got a really satisfying looking handle on it. It looks really cool, actually. And so the idea is you slot this thing in, and it's going to have like power and HDMI internally. It's going to get routed to the display that it's connecting to. And then this thing has on the outside facing a couple of USB ports, an Ethernet port, and a second HDMI port. Looks like a power switch as well. And so again, this is designed for smart displays. And I look at this and I go, this is like the old Blade servers. Is somebody building it would be maybe a 3 or 4 U high if you were to do this. Is somebody building a chassis that we could just get these and slot, 10 or 15 or 20 of them into it across the chassis? The Pi 5 has just enough power that would be interesting to do. I don't know if anybody's doing it yet, but man, I couldn't help but think about that when I saw this. Here, I will. I'll throw up I'll share the picture of what this looks like. This thing, right? This is what it is. It's a little tiny rack mount thingy, and man, I think it would be so much fun to have one of these in sort of a Blade style rack mount solution. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but that's sort of my dream. I want. I like rack mounting Raspberry Pis. Something about it makes me feel good. It's fun.
Now, besides signage, what other possibilities could you use this for?
I mean, if you have the right stuff to plug it into, any place you could put a Raspberry Pi, but like signage is what it is explicitly designed for.
Now, you know, somebody's going to get it and do some sort of hack with it.
Oh, of course.
And then we can read about it on Hackaday.
Indeed. Yeah, there's some interesting comments on the Raspberry Pi blog. Someone says there was a comment that we expect this to be mostly commercial. I'm trying to find it exactly. We expect this to be mostly I expect this is Simon Burgess. I believe he is someone at Raspberry Pi Foundation or at the Raspberry Pi Corp. He says, although I expect the majority of demand to be from businesses, I wouldn't want anyone else to miss out. So apparently they are going to make these accessible, at least to some extent, for normal people. Yeah, it looks real interesting to me. I kind of want one. All right. Well, that is our stories for the day, and we are about to move into some tips. I think we get to take one more break. My spreadsheet says we get to take one more break before then, so we'll be back with some tips right after this. All right, so we're going to let Ken kick us off with the command line tips or tips of some sort. And Ken, you've got a splash of color for us.
Yes, I do. This week, I want to introduce the Color ASCII Art Library, libcaca, which is included when you install the package Caca Utils. Also included are some demo applications such as Cacafire, Caca Demo, and Caca View. And this is using Caca View with my screenshot that I'm using for today's avatar. But let me go ahead and expand that up there so you can read what that's saying. Is that big enough?
Yeah, it's just big
I just did Caca View, and since I'm in the folder that my current avatar.ping's in, I just ran that. Now you can also run Cacafire, and that way I can warm my hands up here. And if you want a little bit of psychedelic, there's Caca Demo.
Oh my.
And it goes through all sorts of changes. And what's interesting is you've got some buttons when you're in Caca View that allow you to change the dynamic random. Let's go back to this. But for the pixelization, tell me which one looks like most like me.
That was pretty good.
Yep. And you can even see the bookcases. You can't read us, make out the titles, can you?
No, not quite. Not quite.
But
that's fun.
Yep. I just came across it when I was looking through a file that I had made of all the executables that I've got on my computer, trying to figure out what I can use for future tips.
Yeah. I need to see if I can get Cacafire to work as like a desktop background or a screensaver now. I'm kind of now.
What you probably need to do is do either a screen capture or screen recording, actually, of it, because it's going to be in the terminal itself, and then convert that screen recording into a
potentially
screensaver.
You might be able to actually run the full terminal as the screensaver. Because KDE is running it's running an application back there and just mapping it through. So I don't know, it might be possible. I have to fiddle with it.
And you can share that tip.
Yeah. future tip. There you go.
And I would add, so for anybody listening, it's libcaca is Libcaca.
True.
And you're going to find its license an interesting one. That's just say, I'm not going to say it right now.
Oh, it's one of those, huh? I guess it's like the WTF license or whatever.
WTFL.
Yep. I've seen
You can do
those.
whatever you want with it.
Yep. All right. Well, Jeff, you've got something interesting. You have a candy tip?
Yeah, my tip this week is I love candy. And this is going to be a short little one. And so for those of you who use the Pac-Man package manager, there's a little Easter egg in there. If you go in and edit your /etc/pacman.conf file, CONF file, and add I love candy with no spaces, the I, L, and C are all capitalized, and you put it in the miscellaneous options section of the file. And in that same section, you also need to add the option color with a capital C. They're on different lines. And then after that, when you do an update to install a program or just update the system, the progress meter will change to a yellow Pac-Man eating the candy progress dots. So it's just a little Easter egg thing that's no actual useful purpose other than it's just fun. So
nice. I like it. All right. I've got a command line tip that I couldn't make work, and I will tell you why. So this it's called Shell Beats, and the idea is that it is a Linux command line music player, but that specifically what it's doing is it's letting you play music from YouTube. And the back end of it is YTDLP. Now, for those of you that are familiar with YTDLP and that use it a lot, you know that YouTube is Google is trying real hard to not entirely kill that project, but they go out of their way now to make it very difficult to download or access YouTube without actually doing it in the browser. In some cases, without doing it as a logged in user. So the idea here is that you search for tracks, you add them to playlists in your command line, and you can say, hey, play it. And you can also tell it to download it, and you have access to this music to play it from your command line, which is cool. When I go to do it, I get the dreaded 403 errors, and it's asking me to log in. What I've not found out yet is whether Shellbeats has an option to do things like copy your cookies over from your browser, which that's one of the ways to get around the YouTube restrictions. All that said, it looks like a really cool way to listen to music. Again, Shellbeats, it's not packaged. It's packaged in very few places. It is quite new, but it is just a simple make install. It looks neat. I'm very sad that I can't use it yet. I'm still working on it because I would make great use of this. But if you're not, if you haven't done Y2DLP shenanigans, if your IP address is not on Google's list, then it'll probably work for you. Interesting times we live in.
How long ago did you download the copy you're working with?
Today, like a couple hours before the show.
Oh, okay. Because I was noticing that it just had an update on the GitHub about 12 hours ago.
Yes. Yep. I grabbed that one. That was indeed the one that I have. And it's the problem that I'm running into is based off of the problem that YTDLP has. So it's not even a Shellbeats problem. It's just where Google is going out of their way to make life difficult for us. Oh well, such is life. All right, those are our command line tips. That is the show. I'm going to let the guys plug whatever they want to here at the end. Ken, do you have anything that you want to plug or talk about?
Well, I just want to share an article Bobby Borisov wrote about. It's a new open source Deadman switch. Let me go ahead and post that into the show notes so y'all can follow the link to read about it yourself. But that way, if you ever need to, you have some way of notifying next of kin that something's happened.
Yeah,
And give them the ability to access things that they may need to get to.
Yep. Even if you don't use a dead man switch, this is, or this particular application, this is something to think about. I've had to go through this with a couple of different family members when they've passed, and nobody wants to have to think about it, and it's a real pain. So, write those passwords down somewhere secure and do something. Don't just leave folks in the lurch.
And you youngins, you need to think about that now, not 30 years from now.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right. And Jeff?
Nothing too much this week. I appreciate everybody that's contributed to the poetry corner. I'm getting submissions. So if you don't hear yours right away, we got a lot of weeks of poetry coming. So, and I will say, if in the future you hear one that I've said in the past, it's because I think I've told you when I upgraded, I had a backup issue and didn't back up something I thought I did. So there was some poetry I had read and some that I hadn't got to. So you might hear a repeat because I can't remember if I hadn't got to it or I did get to it. But enough of that. Poetry. But I'm sorry, there's insufficient. What's it called? The term eludes me. Have a great week, everybody.
Oh, bravo. You got me there. Okay. If you want to find more of my stuff, there is, of course, Floss Weekly over at Hackaday. Have a lot of fun there. And we've got all kinds of fun stuff going on. I don't have the spreadsheet up in front of me. I don't know who we've talked to. We've talked to a bunch of people, and we've got more scheduled, so you can check us out over there. Other than that, just want to say thank you to everybody that watches or listens, whether you get us live or on the download, and we'll be back next week for another Untitled Linux Show.